I thought marriage would feel like a warm blanket, something safe, something final. And for a few days, it was. I still remember the way he looked at me at the altar, like I was the only woman in the world. We danced, laughed, planned our future like two people who truly believed nothing could break what we had. But sometimes life has a way of testing our vows long before we've settled into them. I wasn't ready for that knock on the door. I wasn't ready for her holding something in her hand that would change everything. It's been 6 months since that day, and even now, some nights I stare at the ceiling, asking myself if I missed the signs, or if I just wanted to believe in love too badly. This isn't just a story about betrayal, it's about the silence that follows, the choices we make in the dark, and the version of ourselves we meet when everything we believe starts to fall apart. If you're still here, maybe this story was meant to find you too. Stay with me. It was only 5 days after the wedding. The dress still hung in the back of the closet with traces of my perfume. My bouquet was drying on the nightstand, and I still hadn't unpacked all the cards with our names written in gold. Everything smelled like the beginning of a life I had waited years to start. That morning was quiet. I remember humming while folding towels, still feeling like a bride. Then came the knock, 3 soft taps. Not urgent, not threatening, just unexpected. I opened the door without thinking, expecting a neighbor or maybe a delivery. Instead, there she was. Her face looked pale, almost scared, but her eyes locked onto mine, like she had been waiting for this moment. In her hand, shaking ever so slightly, was a plastic pregnancy test inside a Ziploc bag. I didn't speak, neither did she nod at first. Time stopped. My heart, for some reason I still can't explain, sank before she said a word, as if my body knew what my mind refused to believe. She finally opened her mouth and said my name, not with hate, not with sarcasm, but with something that sounded a lot like pity. I didn't want to come here like this, she said. I tried calling him, but he didn't answer. I didn't know what else to do. I looked at her hand again. The test had 2 lines, bold, clear, positive. My throat tightened. I was aware of my bare feet on the cold floor, the way the light from the window caught the edges of her hair. She was beautiful, but not in the way I expected. Not polished or intimidating, just real, raw, and strangely familiar, like someone I had passed in a dream. I whispered, "Are you saying it's his?" And she nodded, barely. We were still seeing each other until right before the wedding. She said, "He told me it was over, that he chose you, but I didn't know I was pregnant then." The words crashed into me like waves. I stepped back, just enough to put space between us, just enough to remember to breathe. My first instinct was to slam the door, pretend I never saw her, pretend that plastic stick didn't exist. But I didn't. I stood there, half inside my home, half outside the truth. She wasn't crying. I wasn't either. It was something colder than pain, a kind of numb disbelief. I asked, "Why now?" And she answered simply, "Because I thought you deserved to know." There was no cruelty in her voice, no triumph, just quiet devastation, the kind that echoes through a woman's body when she's done pretending things are okay. I invited her in. I don't know why. Maybe I needed to hear more. Maybe part of me wanted her to be lying, to catch her in some inconsistency. But she wasn't lying. Every word she said came with pauses and breath and the kind of fear you can't fake. She told me dates, showed me texts. I didn't ask to see the ultrasound picture, but she showed me anyway. 6 weeks. That would mean it happened while we were setting up our guest list, while I was practicing vows, while I was buying white heels. And he had been with her, touching her, lying to both of us. My fingers gripped the edge of the kitchen counter as she talked. I don't remember all of it. I just remember the sinking, the silence between my ribs, the hollow behind my eyes. When she left, I didn't move for a long time. The house was too still, too clean, too perfect. I thought marriage would come with challenges, but I never imagined betrayal would knock so early, or be this quiet, this calm, this composed. I sat on the couch and stared at our wedding photo. My hand was on his chest, his smile was wide, and I looked certain. How do you lose certainty in 5 days? How do you look at the man you just promised forever to and start questioning if you really knew him at all? I didn't tell him right away. I didn't scream or accuse. I waited. I watched him. I tried to see the cracks. That night, when he walked through the door, kissed my cheek and asked how my day was, I felt a rage I didn't recognize, but I said nothing. I smiled back and asked if he wanted tea. And in my mind, I replayed every second of her visit, every syllable, every breath. I was no longer the bride in the photo. I was a woman holding too much truth and not enough strength. And the worst part, a small, shameful part of me still hoped it wasn't his. Still wanted to believe in the man I married. Still wanted this to be someone else's nightmare, not mine. When I finally told him about her visit, I didn't plan a speech. I didn't rehearse the words. They came out suddenly, like they had been simmering in my throat for days. He was sitting on the edge of the bed, tying his shoes. The late afternoon light fell softly across the floor, and I just said it. She came by. He looked up, confused. I continued, "Your ex? She came to the house. She's pregnant." I expected denial, maybe anger, maybe some ridiculous accusation that I was making it up. But what I got was silence. Not the kind of silence that says I'm shocked, but the kind that comes from guilt fighting to rearrange itself into something more presentable. He blinked twice, like he was processing the words one at a time. "She what?" he asked, voice low, almost careful. "She said it's yours," I whispered. "That you were still seeing her while we were planning our wedding." He stood up then, too fast, like the floor had just caught fire. "That's not true," he said. "She's lying. She's always been like this, manipulative, dramatic. She's trying to ruin us." His voice was louder now, but not steady. There was a tremble in it, a hesitation between syllables. I watched his face, the tightening of his jaw, the way his eyes didn't meet mine. He was spinning the story before I even asked for his side. "You believe her?" he said. "Over me? Over your husband?" That word husband hit differently. It wasn't comforting. It wasn't a shield. It felt like a weapon he had just picked up, hoping it would make me back down. I told him I didn't know what to believe, and that was the truth. I was floating between two people's stories, neither of which felt complete. But what haunted me most wasn't what she said, it was the way he looked at me after I repeated it. Like he wasn't surprised. Like he had expected this moment to come eventually. "You have to trust me," he said. "This baby isn't mine. She's doing this because I chose you. She can't stand that." I asked him why he didn't answer her calls. He said he blocked her months ago. I asked if he had seen her since we got engaged. He hesitated. "Once," he said. "We ran into each other. It was nothing." But I already knew it wasn't nothing. I had the texts. I had the dates. I didn't mention them, not yet. I wanted to see how far he'd go with his version. "You don't have to lie to protect me," I said. "Just tell me the truth. I deserve at least that." He sat back down, hands gripping his knees. "It wasn't like that," he said. "She came to me in a moment of weakness. I didn't want it to happen. I told her it was over, that I was with you, but she kept calling. And I didn't know how to make it stop." It was an admission without ownership. He had slept with her maybe once, maybe more, but in his version, it had just happened to him, like rain or gravity. I wanted him to look me in the eye and say it was a mistake, that he felt sick about it, that he regretted everything. But he didn't. He just kept trying to convince me that she was the problem. "She's unstable," he said. "She's done this kind of thing before, to other guys. She just wants attention." But I wasn't thinking about other guys. I was thinking about us, about how I had waited so long to be his wife, only to sit here now, 6 days into our marriage, feeling like I was already being erased. I asked him directly, "Is there any chance it's yours?" He paused, and in that pause, something inside me broke. He didn't say no right away. He didn't jump to defend himself. He looked away and exhaled like he was trying to breathe out something heavy. "I don't think so," he finally said. That was the moment I knew. Not because of what he said, but because of what he didn't. The man who had just married me couldn't look me in the eyes and swear he hadn't created a child with someone else. That uncertainty was like a crack in glass, invisible at first, but spreading quickly, silently. He reached for my hand, but I pulled away, not angrily, just gently, like I couldn't bear to be touched by someone I no longer recognized. "I need time," I told him. "I need space to think." He nodded, but his face fell, like he already sensed that time wouldn't be enough to fix this. I spent that night on the couch. I stared at the ceiling for hours, trying to trace the moment when love had started to unravel. Was it when he saw her again? When he lied to me by omission? Or was it when I looked at him and realized I didn't feel safe anymore, not emotionally, not spiritually, not in the quiet way a woman feels safe in the presence of someone who truly honors her. The next morning, he acted like nothing had happened, made coffee, kissed my forehead, asked if I wanted eggs. I played along. I was too tired to fight, but deep down, something had shifted. I started watching him like a stranger, noticing details I once overlooked, the way he avoided certain topics, how quickly he changed the subject when I asked about the past. Every sentence became a clue, every silence, a scream. He swore the baby wasn't his, but something in his eyes said otherwise, and that something wouldn't let me sleep. If you've ever looked into someone's eyes and felt a truth they wouldn't say out loud, then maybe you understand what I mean. Maybe you've been there too, stuck between love and what it's trying to hide. If you're still listening, please subscribe. It helps me keep telling this story. And if you feel like leaving a comment or sharing, only do it if something in this made you feel less alone. I think I just needed someone to hear me tonight. I didn't go looking for them. I want that to be clear. I wasn't the kind of woman who checked phones or read through private messages. I never wanted to be that version of myself, suspicious, small, broken, and secret. But pain changes you. Silence does too. After everything he said, after all his promises and careful explanations, there was still something in his eyes that kept echoing through me. A hesitation, a flicker, a buried truth trying to stay hidden. And one night, while he was asleep just a few feet away, I picked up his phone. It wasn't even locked. He trusted me. Or maybe he didn't think I'd dare. My hands were trembling, and my breath was shallow. I didn't know what I expected to find. Maybe nothing. Maybe something old. But when I opened the deleted messages folder, my heart dropped. There she was. Her name, her words. And not from months ago, they were recent, some just days before our wedding. I felt my chest tighten as I read them. I still can't believe you're doing this. So you're just going to pretend it didn't happen? Are you going to tell her? That was the one that broke me. I stared at it for what felt like hours. 6 words. That's all it took to unravel everything I'd tried so hard to protect. He hadn't just lied by omission. He had hidden conversations, deleted truths, erased timelines. He had constructed a version of reality where I was the only woman, while secretly maintaining a connection to the one he claimed was unstable, dramatic, delusional. And yet, in those messages, she didn't sound unstable. She sounded wounded, desperate, like someone who had been left behind but still carried pieces of him. I kept scrolling. One message had a date attached to it, 2 weeks before our wedding. She had sent him a photo of a positive pregnancy test, the same one she brought to my door. He replied with just one word: shit. That was it. Not denial, not outrage, just panic. And after that, the thread went silent, deleted, but not forgotten, not by her. And now, not by me. I sat on the bathroom floor with the phone in my lap, and the messages were playing in my mind like a recording I couldn't turn off. Every "I love you" he whispered to me during those days suddenly felt tainted. Was he texting her in the same hour he kissed my forehead? Was he thinking of her while helping me pick table centerpieces? I looked at myself in the mirror and didn't recognize the woman staring back. She looked exhausted, hollow, like she had aged 10 years in 10 minutes. I didn't confront him that night. I couldn't. I needed to breathe first, to think, to decide whether knowing the truth was better or worse than living in denial. The next morning, I asked him if he had anything else to tell me. He said no, just like that. No hesitation, no pause. And I knew in that moment that he had made his choice not just to lie, but to continue lying. So I asked, "Did she message you after she found out?" He froze. "No," he said too quickly. "I told you, I haven't heard from her." I nodded. I didn't challenge him. I just let the silence do what it does best: expose. I wasn't ready to scream. I wasn't ready to cry. I was still stuck in that numb in between where you're watching your own life play out like a movie, and you're not sure if you're the main character or just a background extra in someone else's chaos. Later that day, I emailed the messages to myself. I don't know why. Proof, maybe. Not that I needed it anymore. Maybe I just didn't want to keep carrying it alone. Maybe I wanted the truth to exist somewhere other than my chest. I didn't tell anyone. Not my mother, not my friends, not even my sister. I carried this alone for weeks, this quiet betrayal, this invisible wound. People would ask, "How's married life?" And I would smile and say, "It's good. Just adjusting." and no one saw the cracks. No one heard the scream behind my teeth. I kept pretending because sometimes pretending is easier than admitting you were wrong about the person you chose. I kept waiting for him to tell me, to sit me down and admit it all. The messages, the nights, the fear. But he never did. He kissed me like normal, laughed like normal, slept beside me like nothing had happened. And I started to wonder if he believed his own version of the story more than the truth itself. If he had told it to himself so many times that he couldn't hear the sound of his own guilt anymore. I still have those messages saved. I don't read them often, but I know they're there. I think a part of me needs them to be there, not for revenge, not for proof, but to remind myself that I'm not crazy, that I felt what I felt, that I saw what I saw, and that deep down, I already knew. I just didn't want to. If you've ever found something you weren't supposed to see, something that changed the way you looked at someone you love, then maybe you understand the silence I carry. If you do, please subscribe, not for me, but because stories like mine are too easy to hide. And if you feel like sharing or leaving a comment, maybe it's because you've lived something too. Maybe we're not as alone as we think. After days of sleepless nights and silent tears, I realized I couldn't carry this weight alone anymore. The questions that circled my mind like vultures weren't going to leave me be. What had really happened between them? Why hadn't he told me the whole truth? And most of all, who was she? The woman who showed up on my doorstep holding my worst nightmare. I needed to hear her side. Maybe it was foolish, maybe it was brave, but I packed a small bag and drove over to her house. One afternoon, the neighborhood was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels heavy, like it's holding its breath along with you. When I rang the doorbell, my heart hammered so loud I was sure she could hear it on the other side. The door opened slowly, and there, she stood, not the enemy I'd imagined, but a woman whose eyes held the same exhaustion and fear I felt. We sat across from each other, awkward at first, two strangers connected by a man and a secret. She told me things I wasn't ready for, confessions about love and betrayal that blurred the lines between victim and perpetrator. She hadn't known she was pregnant when they last saw each other, she said. She thought he had chosen me, thought she was finally moving on. But when the test turned positive, the world shifted. I saw her pain mirrored in my own reflection. We talked about the late nights he spent away, the lies that tangled between us, and the hopes we both had crushed under the weight of his choices. For a moment, it wasn't about him. It was about two women trying to make sense of a broken story. She admitted she had reached out to him, desperate for answers and promises he couldn't keep. I admitted I had been waiting for him to come clean, to save me from this limbo. Neither of us wanted to hate each other, only to understand why. We had become strangers in a story neither of us wanted to star in. Before I left, she handed me a small envelope. Inside was a letter, an apology, a plea, and a hope that I would find a way to forgive. I drove home with the letter resting on my lap, feeling the weight of words I wasn't sure I was ready to read. That night, I sat alone in the dark, holding the letter, and realized that the man I thought I knew was a ghost in our lives, haunting both our stories, but belonging fully to neither of us. I didn't know what forgiveness looked like anymore, or if it was even possible. But I knew that understanding her story was the first step to understanding mine. And maybe, just maybe, the first step to reclaiming the woman I was before all this began. I started to notice things I hadn't before, little cracks in the life we'd tried to build. The way he glanced at his phone when it buzzed, the subtle tension that filled the room when I brought up certain subjects, the way he avoided eye contact when I asked simple questions about his day. I wanted to believe it was all in my head, that I was overthinking, that love would shield me from suspicion. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. One evening, I found myself sitting alone in the living room, the silence loud enough to fill the spaces between my thoughts. My heart was heavy with doubts I couldn't shake. And then, by chance, I came across his phone left unlocked on the kitchen counter. My fingers hesitated over the screen, a storm raging inside me. I didn't want to know, yet I needed to. Opening the messaging app, I scrolled through recent conversations and then noticed a folder labeled deleted. Something urged me to open it. And there, like ghosts from a past I was trying to forget, were messages between him and her. Messages he had tried to erase. My breath caught as I read. Are you going to tell her? She deserves to know. I can't keep doing this. It wasn't just words, it was a confession of guilt hidden behind a veil of secrecy. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of betrayal, the shore nowhere in sight. Each message was a dagger, twisting in the wound of what I thought was my safe world. I remember sitting down hard, the phone slipping from my trembling hands onto the floor. Tears blurred my vision as the truth settled around me like a suffocating fog. How long had this been going on? How many moments had I shared with him while he was lying, hiding pieces of himself from me? I wanted to confront him right then and there, demand answers, break down the walls he had built. But fear held me back. Fear of the shattered pieces I might find. Fear of the man I thought I married becoming a stranger before my eyes. That night, I lay awake. The messages were playing in my mind like a relentless echo. I realized the pain wasn't just about infidelity. It was about the lies, the silence, the unspoken truths that poisoned every moment we spent together. The next day, I chose a quiet courage. I sat him down, phone in hand, and told him what I had found. His face went pale, eyes flickering with a mixture of shame and anger. "I never meant for you to see that," he said quietly. "I was going to tell you, eventually, that the damage was done." Trust shattered like glass underfoot. I told him I needed time to heal, to understand, to decide if this marriage could survive the cracks. He nodded, but I saw the fear in his eyes. The fear of losing me, the woman who stood silently holding the weight of a broken promise. In those moments, I wasn't sure if love was enough. I wasn't sure if forgiveness was possible. But I knew I had to find a way forward, one piece at a time. For myself, for the woman, I was becoming stronger, more cautious, but still hoping for a light to guide me through the darkness. And maybe, if you've ever felt this kind of pain, this kind of betrayal, you understand the quiet bravery it takes just to keep breathing. If you're still listening, please subscribe. It's more than just words, it's a lifeline for those of us learning to live with a fractured heart. And if you feel moved to share or comment, do it gently, knowing we're all searching for a way to heal. The days that followed the discovery felt like walking through a thick fog, heavy, uncertain, and stretching endlessly before me. Every morning I woke with a weight pressing down on my chest, a reminder that the life I thought I had was unraveling thread by thread. I found myself caught between two worlds, the one I had dreamed of when I said I do, full of hope and promise, and this harsh reality where trust was broken and silence filled the spaces where love should have been. I questioned everything. My judgment, his words, our memories. Were they all built on lies? Or was there still a kernel of truth hidden beneath the cracks? Healing was not a straight path. It was jagged, unpredictable, a battle between despair and resilience. Some days I could breathe without choking on sadness. Others, the weight was so suffocating I could barely move. The woman I was before felt like a distant stranger, lost somewhere in the storm. Writing became my refuge, the only place where the chaos inside me could find shape and voice. I wrote pages of pain, hope, anger, and confusion, all tangled together like the threads of a shattered tapestry. Each word was a step toward reclaiming myself, even if the journey was slow and uncertain. Forgiveness seemed impossible at times, a mountain too steep and high to climb. The betrayal had cut so deep, and yet I knew that clinging to anger would only bind me to the past and prevent me from moving forward. So I made a quiet choice, to let the pain teach me, not imprison me, to allow the grief to be real without letting it define my entire story. Slowly, I began to open my heart cautiously, tenderly to the possibility of a future shaped by truth, strength, and maybe even grace. I don't know what lies ahead for us, whether our marriage will survive this fracture or crumble completely. But I do know that I am no longer the woman who stood silently, afraid to face the truth. I am becoming someone who stands in her own light, holding a heart still open to love, even if it looks different now. If you've listened this far, I want to thank you. Thank you for holding space for this raw and painful journey, for understanding that sometimes love is messy, complicated, and heartbreaking, but also that there is hope in sharing our stories. Please consider subscribing to this channel. It's not just about numbers or views, it's about keeping voices alive, honoring the stories of those who have suffered in silence, and building a community where no one feels alone. Your subscription is a quiet promise that these stories matter. If any part of my story resonated with you, I invite you to leave a comment. Share your own experiences, your pain, your healing, because every word spoken here is a thread in a larger tapestry of shared humanity. We carry each other's stories. And if you want to explore more stories of heartbreak, strength, and survival, please visit the playlist linked in the description or pinned in the comments. There, you'll find others who have walked this path, whose voices echo the pain and hope you hear here. Together, we create a circle of empathy, courage, and healing. Let's keep these stories alive for ourselves, for those who came before us, and for the ones still finding their way through the darkness. Because in sharing, we find light.